Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today as always by Lisa Roman, my colleague and co-host, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's episode, we have a Challenge Cup Week 1 recap. Before we get into all of the matches from this weekend, a quick reminder to follow us on Twitter for all news and updates at Attacking Third. You can watch us as video too. Subscribe to youtube.com/attacking third so that you never miss our exclusive interviews or whenever we go live. Lisa, we've got games to recap. We're back in business, baby. How you doing today?
We are back. We're back in the groove. I'm good. I'm a little tired. I'm wound up on some coffee right now. Not gonna lie, I might talk pretty quick, might be pretty animated, but hey, that's what we're here to do. We had games, Sandra. We had matches. We had some teams walk away with 3 points in a win. A lot of teams walk away with draws throughout this one. Only one team walking away with 0 points. We're totally going to dive into all of it, which I'm really excited about. But there were games spread out across the weekend too. So we could almost ease ourselves into it and then wane ourselves off with just one match on Sunday evening. How are you? How'd you watch them? Did you enjoy them relaxingly? Were you into them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my vibe around the games was a little different from yours, right? You were you were on duty, on call for a good chunk of these games, so you have a little bit of a different view on them, and I can't wait to ask you about them. And but yeah, I kind of like that you pointed that out. I love that they kind of started off with a double header, then there was a triple header, and then it's like they got one game for us to close out opening weekend, and it was able to sort of, like you said, settle in. But it was nice to throw on the old TV and turn on Paramount Plus and be able to watch these games and have NWSL action back in our lives. And again, you can watch all NWSL matches across Paramount Plus live or on demand. So if for whatever reason you were occupied this weekend or might have missed a match or two, you can catch a replay of some of these games over on Paramount Plus when you want to log on in and go ahead and subscribe. 6 matches throughout the weekend. Kansas City Current versus Racing Louisville, OL Reign versus Portland Thorns, Orlando Pride versus Washington Spirit, North Carolina Courage versus Gotham FC, Angel City versus San Diego Wave FC, and Houston Dash versus Chicago Red Stars. We are going to touch on all of these games, maybe take a deeper dive on some games versus some others, but we maybe have to start off with our matches of the weekend, right? When we did our preview for this opening weekend, there were a couple matches that we had on our radar, Lisa. We had the regional rivalries, right, that were going to come into play. And let's start with that first one here that we want to really get into. It took place on Saturday, right? So we'll be going a little bit of mismatch order here, but we were really eager to talk about this one because there was a lot of hype around this match. It's the California Clash, right? Or we'll find out. We'll see like what folks are going to be referring to this regional derby as, but we've been referring to it as that, right, on Attacking Third and at CBS Sports. So this Cali Clash at Angel City versus the Wave. Talk to me about some of your initial thoughts on this match, like the vibe, the energy about finally having these two teams officially introduce themselves to the league.
I mean, it was so exciting, right? This was the most anticipated game because it was two new sides that we hadn't seen before. It was the Cali Clash, the SoCal Royale, whatever you want to call it. I'm excited for all of these names that are going to come out. I like it to have a little bit of alliteration or rhyming scheme to it. So people go at it. Drop us your best names for the California teams in the chat. We want to hear what you have. This was a good match. It was a lot. There was a lot to take in, right? From when they dropped the starting lineups on Twitter right before the match happened to seeing that Abby Dahlkamper was going to be on limited minutes, Alex Morgan going to be on limited minutes, so not in the starting lineup. Because of that, it was automatically reaction to kind of what's going to happen, who's going to be out there. Of course, Kristen Press. And looking at this, 4 cards coming out in this one, 4 yellow cards. We saw a lot of cards across this weekend, and it started in this one too. I liked what we saw. I mean, Kelsey Turnbow is a player that we've had our eyes on. She was drafted in 2021 to Chicago and then traded to San Diego. But I was very impressed with the level of play from both of these expansion sides, because in the past, expansion sides are not known for being dangerous, really, or having a lot of weapons, because you need depth, you need veterans, you need people that understand the league. And both of these sides, Angel City and San Diego, they have that. So it can make for a good match. I think it was a little bit of the Kristen Press show for Angel City, but getting on the board first, who would have thought? Savannah McCaskill. I mean, tell me about this. Did you see this goal coming, right? We talked about the bingo cards coming into this one. What were your reactions to this matchup, and even seeing the starting lineups, and then how the first 15, 20 minutes of the match went?
Honestly, it just like I really loved the energy coming out of this one. We all know that Angel City is going to be playing their regular season home games at Bank of California Stadium, and this one was going to be kicking off at Titan Stadium, right in Fullerton, California. But I don't think that took away from any of the excitement or joy that was centered in and around this match. These are two teams that have been building up towards this moment, for a long time, and for Angel City as the hosts, of this one, even longer, right? They announced that they were going to be an expansion side in NWSL during the 2020 Challenge Cup, so here they are in the third edition of this and getting things out. But even just looking, like you said, looking at those starting lineups and sort of seeing like who got called for their starting 11 from both sides of the pitch, with Freya Coombe versus Casey Stoney. And that was a little bit of a coaching battle that I enjoyed as well. And I think we were anticipating like what that was even going to look like, right? Because this is the first match for all of these teams across the weekend. So there were likely to be maybe some moments of lull, right? Maybe some moments of kicking off, some preseason rust, perhaps looking disjointed a little bit. And I think maybe the excitement, right, of that first 20 minutes in this match maybe kind of alluded to that, right? There was definitely a lot of vibes, no bid field going on, right? From back and forth. We were just kind of like, okay, like this is what it's gonna be. Everyone's just gonna get out there and get a run out. But very, very exciting. And I think the big thing for me was, finally being able to see, Kristen Press, right, on a starting lineup, making her return to NWSL action, last playing in the league in 2019, playing overseas in 2020 with Manchester United, and now making her way back home, right? That was the big storyline around this. And not just her, but there were a number of like California kids balling out on this pitch. You mentioning Kelsey Turnbow, right? But Katie Johnson, I think also for San Diego Wave FC, I think on one side you're looking at a player like Press and sort of seeing what she's trying to produce for Angel City. But we got to see a lot out of Katie Johnson as well, trying to get on the board for San Diego first, really early on in that first half as well.
Yes, and no goals coming until Savannah McCaskill opened it up in the 49th minute, which was a great goal, right, to start all of this and kind of get things going. But I was very impressed with some of the rookies that we saw. I mean, we're talking about Kelsey Turnbow right now and Naomi Gurma starting in the back line. It was so interesting to kind of see it all come to fruition, because we've talked to Casey Stoney, we've talked to Freya Coombe about these clubs and how they want to build the foundation of their team moving forward, and what they need to put out on the pitch to do that. But the second half for me, when we started to see some of the rotation come in, that's when I got really giddy and really excited to see Alex Morgan and Sophia Jakobsen playing together. I'm very excited, Sandra. I'm very excited for this duo and what they have to come down the stretch. Honestly, Endo, I believe for Angel City, very, very good game out of them. I think that there's so much that bringing internationals into the NWSL game that provides, besides experience and anything like that. It's a different look. It's a different type of energy that they bring into this, wanting to play. I was really impressed with Endo. I think Jakobsen showed a little of what she can do. But ultimately, I think goalkeepers, they had a battle throughout this match. Kaylin Sheridan had a really, really fantastic game. When you look at some of the stats for this match, 17 shots for each side, which very even, pretty impressive on that sense, I'm going to say. Saves, Didi Herrera had 3 saves. Kaylin Sheridan, 5 saves. So big night for both of these keepers, battling against each other. Used to be on the same club and now on opposite ends. This was a good one, and ending in a 1-1 draw. We did not see that coming.
No, we like to pick winners and losers, right? On A3, right? We don't always like to lean into the draw, although maybe that first weekend of games, you're probably is best bet is to list out some draws, right? But I love that you mentioned the goalkeepers right now. Let's actually talk a little bit more about this match before we transition into the next match. When it came to individual performances, 1v1 performances, right? When we're looking throughout this match of Angel City versus San Diego Wave, I think really early on, we centered in on these two players as this sort of matchup to watch because they both kind of set the tone pretty early. Kristen Press versus Kaylin Sheridan during this match, and maybe the sub honor can go to Katie Johnson versus Herrera, right? Looking at these kind of individual performances throughout this match. Again, coming up really early. We're talking like just 6-7 minutes into the match. McCaskill switching the point of attack, finding Press out wide. Press taking the space, right? Bullying off a defender and just letting this rocket fly. But Sheridan getting just enough on this one to tip it off of the post, right? And I think right then we sort of knew that we were in store for a little bit of a battle, and those two ended up sort of going head to head a little bit throughout the match. That's why it's our 1v1 battle to watch for the weekend.
It was such a battle, and we put Press a forward with a goalkeeper at Sheridan because Press was just bullying away from the defenders, right? She had them on her. They were trying to stop her, but that's the power of Kristen Press, and that's why it's really fun to have her back in the league and in the NWSL because she can be so dangerous. She gets just an inch of space and she creates more space from herself from that with her touch, her angle that she approaches the ball, the distance that she can put between herself and the defender. And then it just comes down to the goalkeeper. And Kaylin Sheridan had a really nice game against Kristen Press. A lot to kind of take away from this, from both sides, both players. Kristen Press needing to be a little bit more clinical in her finishing. Can she get a better shot, be more picky about which shot she's looking to take? I mean, she was just looking to shoot the one off the crossbar. That's great, but Kristen Press, you got to hit those low and hard. Can you find the corner on them? And for Kaylin Sheridan, I mean, her body positioning was good, but it's getting there before, getting set before the shot comes. And that's all about reaction time because you know it's only going to come quicker and quicker and quicker from Press as she gets more into the groove of the season. I like this 1v1 battle that we're highlighting, though. Press, Sheridan, circle it. It's a good one to watch. And we get another matchup between these two in the Challenge Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Press really putting on the shots, building up the stats, executing 7 shots, getting 4 on target, right? And then McCaskill getting the historic goal. Let's talk about defender goals maybe a little bit because we saw those across the league. And we also still saw that in this game. Equalizer from Kaylee Real. I think, again, 2 unexpected players, I think, in this one that people were wondering who was going to get the first historic goals in these matches. But lots to be excited about, I think, from both of these teams in the post game. A lot of good stuff coming out of there as well. I wrote up a little bit more about this match. You could check it out on CBSSports.com. The California Clash is here. The Casey Stoney era is here. She had some great stuff coming out of her post game, so go ahead and check it out. Defending her choices in terms of the roster that she put out there. And I love to see it. Love to see that energy from the coaches. Love to see the energy from the players. Looking forward to more matches from these two sides. Let's take a look at the other regional rivalry match that we had circled on our calendars. OL Reign versus Portland Thorns. That closed out opening day. It was NWSL action after dark for sure. Really coming through for us clutch in this one. This was the game that we saw with another draw, right? So to kind of kick things in motion here. 1-1, splitting the points between both of these sides. Lisa, what did you see on this game? Because I heard you on that call.
This game was very fun. You can tell that the rivalry is real. It is there. Any new player that had come into either of these sides, they were educated about the rivalry. They knew that big things were to come between OL Reign and Portland Thorns. And I think we saw that, right? There was tussles, lots of cards being thrown around in this one as well. I was very, very impressed and not surprised with OL Reign and their ability to manipulate the play, impose their game on Portland Thorns. The passing sequences, the movement off the ball, the patience with their decision making. I was super, super impressed with that. And I think all of those things led up to the first goal, the opening goal for Sofia Huerta that came in just the 19th minute, because OL Reign was passing the ball around. They had different opportunities to shoot or to send crosses in, and they were patiently waiting for the right moment, the right player, the right space to do that. And that patience is good when you have it in moderation. Too much of it, and it becomes just a pass around game. But that wasn't the case with OL Reign. They knew the moments when to strike first. It's a beautiful layoff from Angelina, and Sofia Huerta, what'd she say? She just smacked the crap out of it. And that's what she wanted to do with that ball. What a shot from Sofia Huerta, the defender. I mean, she's played all over the pitch, but now as a defender for Laura Harvey, this goal set the tone. I was very, very impressed with what I saw from OL Reign. And of course, responses from Portland Thorns just a few minutes later, about 10 minutes later, Christine Sinclair. I think from Sophia Smith, I didn't see as much as I wanted to see, or as much as I maybe thought I was going to see, but it's because OL Reign handled her very well defensively. She was able to make good runs, get on back shoulders of defenders, and slip in behind. But OL Reign was there and able to do that. I think Tullis Joyce, goalkeeper for OL Reign, that is a young goalkeeper. We've talked about this in our preview of this. Not a lot of experience at the goalkeeper position, but Tullis Joyce doing a nice job against Portland, which is a high-powered team. But when you look at these two, midfield to midfield, OL Reign dominated that area of the field.
Yeah, I think going into this one, we were chatting a little bit about it. We were sort of keeping the middle third, right, of this game kind of circled a little bit, just sort of looking at the players available for this type of match. And we just sort of felt that perhaps the midfield, OL Reign's midfielders just had a little bit more in their arsenal, compared to Portland Thorns, right? Considering the players that they had unavailable for this match, and to sort of see that opening goal, right? Not having Huerta having all that space to be able to sort of pull that trigger, and Sophia Smith really active both on and off the ball, just unable to sort of get that breakthrough goal. But we just sort of saw like how this type of menace that she could be on the pitch, right? And forcing this type of attention around her, which eventually led to that equalizer for Portland Thorns. It was so kind of, it's a little bit funny, right? To sort of see this pairing, right? 21-year-old Smith with a 38-year-old Christine Sinclair. I'm excited to sort of see its transgression and what it looks like as the year continues. But what we saw in this opening half, for Smith to be able to go ahead and just attract all that kind of attention, you kind of wonder if there's going to be like a little bit of a sleeper hole tactic going on in the future with these two up top together. And Christine Sinclair is absolutely the most dangerous player that you could probably sleep on. I don't care what version or what era of her you're getting. She has far too many NWSL highlights for people to sort of forget that she is a lethal player on the pitch when ignored. So that's how it stood, though, in terms of kind of leveling things out, right, in terms of this game. Because once it got into that second half, Portland looked like they sort of started to take back the game a little bit and kind of level things out. But in leveling things out, it ended up staying, through a 1-1 draw for both of these teams. And ultimately, by the time that final whistle win, it kind of just felt like that makes sense. That makes sense of this kind of game boils down to a 1-1 draw. And we're going to maybe open things up a little bit with this game, because another thing that we want to hone in on this game about is maybe a defensive performance, right? And it's funny because we're talking a little bit about a player like Huerta, who had a really strong performance, but is on these highlight reels breaking through as the goal scorer, right? Versus like the lockdown, kind of defense and awareness that she brings to that. position. And then there's also a goal highlight in this one where there is a bit of a defensive breakdown for the Reign. So it's kind of like, gosh, like, what are we going to do here with this one? But, we're thinking a little bit outside the box for this one. And when it comes to, sort of a defensive player of the match award that we want to go ahead and issue that to, we thought about going with Quinn for this one, in terms of what they bring to the pitch and what they bring to that position. There was literally a moment in this match where Quinn had to go ahead and find themselves backtracking a little bit to sort of break off on the and intercept, and sort of break off and close down an attack. So it's evident what they bring to this team in the midfield, right? This sort of level of calm, this sort of level of awareness.
Yes.
And yes, being able to go ahead and have that vision and awareness to break out a pass, but to also be able to recover and break down the opposition as well. So I think we're going to go ahead and give them the defensive player of the match for this one.
Well deserved for Quinn, because they are one of the most defensive players in the world. I mean, we see them play with Canada and in the NWSL, and a lot of times that defensive midfield position can go unnoticed because it's not a flashy position. And even times when Quinn plays, they go unnoticed because they're doing their job correctly. I think we're going to get into all of the other games that happen, but across the league this weekend in the Challenge Cup, there was a lot of rookies, new players in that sixth position. Even on the other side of the field, Sam Coffey for Portland Thorns, she was in that defensive midfield position. And when you compare Quinn's play to someone like Sam Coffey or Jalen Howe for Racing Louisville, who was also in that defensive midfield position, the comparison is very obvious. So for anyone that is confused about why Quinn is as good as they are at that position, as that defensive midfielder, when they can connect passes from left to the right of the field, they can break up defensive plays, they can stop quick transition from the other team. Watch other sixes. They don't do that as well as Quinn does that. And that is what is so impressive. They're doing it. The other ones, Jalen Howe, Sam Coffey, they're doing it in bits and spurts. And they're also young and rookies stepping into this league. And Quinn, they have a lot more experience at the international level and in this league, but they do it so well. Quinn is phenomenal on both sides of the ball, and that's what makes them so special. And they are defensive player of this weekend for sure.
We had to give it to them. Absolutely. We're gonna close out sort of the deeper dives on this one. We're gonna touch on the other matches with you. We're taking the deeper dives in these three matches that kind of stood out for us. The closing match of this opening weekend, right? Houston Dash versus Chicago Red Stars. When we were in the preview talking about some of these matches, we took note that this is going to be the fifth time that these two teams have opened up NWSL fixtures, right, against the other team, and Houston hosting this one. And Lisa, if memory serves me correctly, I went against the Red Stars, and you said I think there's enough there to win, and I got to come on here and say thank you, girl, for going with the Chicago Red Stars, because my goodness,
I went draw. I went one.
Did you go draw?
Oh
no, I went Houston. I thought you went Red Stars. You know what? I'm so used to us not choosing draws that in my head I'm like, oh my God, Lisa chose Chicago and went this way. But oh well. We're both losers. I'm like, oh, well, we're both losers on this one. But let's talk a little bit about this matchup between Houston and Chicago. What a game to close out opening weekend. 3-1 going to Chicago Red Stars, kicking off their Challenge Cup with a win. Already a completely drastic change for this team compared to their prior Challenge Cup in 2021, where they did not have a good 2021 Challenge Cup during their group stage. But coming out, making a little bit of a statement, maybe, right? Narratives around the team coming in, and the fact that they have a new head coach after a decade, and Chris Petrucelli joining up with this side very late into the preseason, right? And Houston Dash losing a player that was significant in their attack in Christy Mewis over the offseason via expansion, right? But still having strong pieces in their attack, whether it was somebody like a Rachel Daly or Nichelle Prince, and then adding to that layer somebody like a Maria Sanchez in the mix of this one. Almost sort of felt like the home side was gonna take this one for a quick second, because in this opening weekend, it's like there's going to be mistakes that are made, right? And maybe it's going to be about the team that capitalizes on it. And we saw early on in the first half another defender goal happening this opening weekend, with Katie Naughton opening the scoring for Houston Dash off of a set piece to sort of give them the early lead. What did you think about the early feeling of this one, Lisa, going into halftime?
I have to touch on the defender goals because we saw it from Kaylee Reel. We saw it from Katie Naughton. We almost saw it from Sam Staub of Washington Spirit. Someone tweeted at me, they definitely listened to Attacking Third because they were like, Lisa's got to be going crazy on these defender goals. And I was going crazy on all of these defender goals. I love to see it. Initial reactions from this Houston-Chicago game, even I dubbed it as a draw during our preview. Even minutes before this match kicked off, when we had the starting lineups, I had spoken with each coach prior to the game for the broadcast purposes. I was still kind of expecting a draw, whether it was 0-0, 1-1. I wasn't expecting much. Chris Petrucelli for Chicago, he had said that he had never had his first 11 together that he wanted to put out on the pitch throughout preseason. And they had not played a match yet that they were doing everything they could to win. So he wasn't even sure what he was going to get from his team throughout this one. James Clarkson, Houston struggled with a bit of a COVID outbreak over the last few days. So a lot of players were day-to-day if they were even going to be available for Sunday's match against Chicago. Ultimately, it came down that a lot of them were available despite being on COVID protocol. The questionable ones were available there, but there was a lot of movement. Losing Christy Mewis in the midfield for Houston is a really big loss. James Clarkson said, we cannot replace her. I can't do that. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to add supplemental things around the team and the players that can even things out. I think adding Maria Sanchez was a huge addition. I think she influenced the game, maybe not as much as we'll see as the game goes on, but I think we saw a lot more possession from Chicago, not just can we feed Pugh over the top? Can we feed Ella Stevens over the top? I think that we saw more defensive organization from Houston than we've seen in 2021. Ultimately, though, with Houston getting on the board first, I was very impressed with the response from Chicago and how they came back, how they continued to battle and move forward with this one. And ultimately, the goal coming from Mallory Pugh, and I'm not surprised at all, but also the goal from Mallory Pugh, not as pretty as we've seen in the past. I think her last touch before Jane Campbell came out to get it was a sloppy touch. And that's why Jane Campbell initially saved the shot. She couldn't catch it. So because of that, able to follow up on the shot and get a second one. It was almost very eerily similar to the Sophia Smith, Christine Sinclair goal that we saw from Portland. But the biggest surprise in this one, Erin Wright burying a penalty kick. Did you have that one coming? Because I sure didn't. That was her first penalty kick she's ever taken in the NWSL. And she buries it. I mean,
look, Erin Wright, I think, is probably one of the veterans of this league, is pretty underrated, right? I think, especially when we're looking at last season for the Chicago Red Stars team and sort of who she is and what she provides for the club as a whole, right? Not just as a player, but watching her step up to take this penalty kick, it threw me a little bit as well. I was thinking it was going to be Yuki Nagasato at some point, right? The return of Nagasato too, I think, is maybe another storyline for this Red Stars team as they, begin this first step of their 2022 season. She is someone who has nailed away penalty kicks for the Chicago Red Stars before in the past. And so sort of seeing Erin Wright be the one to step up and take this kick almost sort of feels like a different chapter, right? In this continuing wonderful story arc that we're watching, from Grady's mama, right? In this league. So to step up and kind of put that away and sort of give this go-ahead goal for the Red Stars, I think was a kind of, I think, met with a little bit of confusion, right? For a number of reasons, because I think there was, folks who were confused about the fact that there was a foul called on the play, that a penalty was issued, right? And then when you're looking at the replay, you're seeing the contact in the box and then the call being given. And I think folks were confused that like even that call would even be, be issued, but I think my initial response to it, even on Twitter, I was like, if those calls were actually given more often in this league, there would probably be a little less confusion about
Yeah.
it. But it was issued and it got put away. And I think once that happens, I think any team will maybe sort of sense like blood in the water, right? Doesn't matter who it is. I'm not going to make it Chicago Red Stars specific by any means. But once that happens, you just sort of, you had that go ahead goal and you want more, right? Especially I think if it's coming off of a penalty kick, right? Because you had the lead and you're like, well, maybe things will open up a little bit as the opposition tries to go ahead and get an equalizer themselves. So some exciting moments, I think, throughout this match for both of the teams here. I think I liked Chicago making some substitutions immediately at the half, bringing on some of their own rookies, right? Neva Cook and in Sarah Griffith, and then them having an impact in this match immediately. And then just, I think it was noticeable that the Dash, unfortunately, coming into this one with some protocols, with COVID protocols, kind of, sort of maybe dampening or lessening their bench a little bit in terms of the options. I mean, bringing on Brie Vasali, right, as a substitution in this match, and then immediately picking up a yellow card, right, in the match. Not maybe
25 seconds on the pitch.
like maybe not the type of impact that you're gonna want to like see or have on the pitch. But this game ending out 3-1. One of the bigger score lines of the weekend for sure. We had to end on that one because we both felt like it was a bit of an exciting match to get into. We're gonna get into the rest of the NWSL matches next. But first, we want to welcome a brand new podcast to the CBS Sports family. In Soccer We Trust covers the beautiful game, or soccer as we like to call it from a U.S. perspective. Join our host and former USMNT teammates Jimmy Conrad, Charlie Davies, and Heath Pierce as they bring you a mix of expertise and passion on all things soccer in the United States. You can download and follow In Soccer We Trust on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you listen to this podcast. Lisa, in NWSL We Trust, we're going to keep it moving on this one for sure. We're going to talk a little bit about the remaining games that took place in the East and the final game in the Central region. For the East region, we have Orlando Pride and Washington Spirit and North Carolina Courage and Gotham FC to touch on. Let's chat a little bit about North Carolina Courage and Gotham FC. North Carolina Courage coming out as the winners in this one, 2-0 over Gotham FC. What were our picks in this one, Lisa?
Oh, good. Fact check me. I have my notebook. I traveled with it. Don't worry. I have everything. You had Gotham and I had Gotham. We are losers, Sandra.
I love it. Nothing like coming on live and letting the good folks know that we are losers. So check this out. 2-0 North Carolina Courage. Goals from Brianna Pinto. We had another defender goal out from Abby Urseg. Looks like it wasn't just the Dash, but Gotham showing that missing somebody like a Christy Mewis as well for them during this match. Just sort of looked like they struggled to ever maybe find their way into the match in this one, right? Scott Parkinson, I think on some of those broadcast calls, you can let me know, Lisa, sort of mentioning how are you going to replace the energy that maybe certain players bring to a match, right? And I think we maybe saw that fold out a little bit over the course of this game with North Carolina and Gotham.
Yeah, I think this was also Gotham, a team that was struggling with a bit of players missing. No Allie Long, no Christy Mewis. It came down to it that she would not be playing, which I think plagues things a little bit. They also have a lot of new faces that are veterans. And sometimes it's harder for a veteran to come into a team that's already been established because they have their way of doing things. They have their mojo, and Ashlyn Harris and Allie Krieger, and they can provide so much. Whereas a rookie coming in, they're just a sponge and looking to absorb and mold into whatever the team needs them to be. So because of that, I think it can change things. I was very impressed with North Carolina. I mean, clearly, you and I both had Gotham winning this one. And I can't speak for your decision on that, but my decision on that was, as much as I thought Gotham was going to come out and show a little bit more of their colors and a little bit more flash in their attacking end, it was also, I was confused about the structure of North Carolina, how their formation was going to look. I mean, we've known the box midfield at North Carolina Courage for so long. So we knew that wasn't going to happen, but how are they going to utilize players like Debinho, Sullivan, Daniels, Pinto? What was going to happen? Who was going to be in goal to start? Because Casey Murphy, Caitlin Rowland, there's options there coming into all of this. And because of that, I chose Gotham. Ultimately, though, North Carolina Courage has been putting on a show. Clearly, their preseason, they got down to work. They put their heads down. They worked. I think Debinha had a really nice game. She was able to control a lot of the play and the momentum of what happened. But North Carolina, the only team to get a shutout, technically. A 0-0 draw does count as a shutout between Washington and Orlando, but for a team that scored 2 goals and also get a clean sheet, I think that's a big pat on the back for North Carolina Courage.
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest takeaways too in this one was the fact that Brianna Pinto went ahead and got on the scoreboard for this team. I know when we did our preview of this, there were some question marks around Denise O'Sullivan and how she was going to be available. When they put out their finalized roster, there was some confusion there as to sort of when she was going to be available. And I think we got to see that, right, sort of from this team out on this pitch, what they look like. The Binya getting pushed up higher. It's almost like you're giving this type of player even more freedom to just go ahead and do what she can do, right? So it just looked like North Carolina Courage went out there and had their game plan and were executing it, and Gotham just sort of struggled a little bit to maybe get it to theirs. But I think when you're looking at a result like this on the North Carolina Courage side, you're taking that with you. You're taking it as the dub, and you're saying, yes, this is the type. This is what we want to bring from North Carolina Courage, and this is who we are, and this is who we intend to be. Competitive, we tend to be, winners, right? When we go out there and step out onto the pitch. And I think if you're Gotham, you're looking at this type of match and saying, hey, it's match day 1, not only of Challenge Cup, but like of the year. We had missing pieces. There was no Christy Mewis there for, Ifioma Anamanu has been an absolutely integral piece for this team, unavailable as well. So you're sort of looking at it with a little bit of glass half full kind of perspectives, right? It's just the first game. There's some personnel missing, and hopefully this was maybe just game 1 of ironing out some of the wrinkles. Let's chat a little bit though about another draw. Well, not another draw for this one, but another draw in general over the weekend. Orlando Pride versus Washington Spirit. And I'm excited to get your takes on this, Lisa, because I know you're on the call for this one. So you probably saw some things that maybe we missed. Okay. But we're talking not just any draw, not just any old draw. We had a good old fashioned scoreless draw in this one. Orlando Pride going through the rebuild, taking on NWSL 2021 champions Washington Spirit. Nobody could crack through on goal in this one. Lisa, what were some of your takes from this one?
I'm going to be honest. This one was a little boring. This game was a little bit boring because we weren't seeing as much consistency from Washington Spirit. The first 15, 20 minutes of this match was hectic. It was chaos all over the place. Washington probably should have scored 2 or 3 of those. And then after that initial surge of energy and excitement for the new season, that's what I'm going to chalk it up to. It was passive soccer from Washington. That's what I saw. I was also very impressed with Orlando Pride and their defensive efforts to kind of play against players like Trinity Rodman, Ashley Hatch, Ashley Sanchez. I think that between those front forwards and Mccain, Sanchez, Hatch, Rodman, they weren't connected and playing as a unit. They didn't have a lot of cohesion amongst themselves to bring the ball forward and be really dangerous and do combination passes to get them in really dangerous areas and then whip shots off, which is what we saw in the championship game and the run they made at the end of 2021. Yeah. So I think a little bit of that is not having played together a lot throughout the preseason. There was international windows and camps that were pulling players from Washington Spirit away, so they didn't have a lot of time together. But also, I think I give a lot of credit to the back line of Orlando Pride and what they were able to do organizationally and to kind of hold people accountable in that sense between Rodman and Hatch and Sanchez, between Peterson, Montefusco, Turner, and then Carrie Lawrence along the back line for Orlando. Two players, I mean, in Montefusco, who is new coming over from Houston, and then Carrie Lawrence, who really did not see much time in 2021. She's a player that impressed Amanda Cromwell a lot, and Amanda Cromwell was confused why Carrie Lawrence hasn't been playing as much as she had. She's a feisty player. She got a yellow card in this match, constantly pulling players down, but we saw glimpses of Marta and the greatness that she can do. We saw Michaela Clough, rookie, that also had really, really good moments. But ultimately, from Washington, I was a little unimpressed with everything that they had. It is early. It's the first game, but I was more impressed with Orlando and what they could bring. Yeah. I don't know if that was like beginner's luck or first game luck from Orlando, but I liked it.
Look, maybe we could chalk it up to like all of the above, right?
Yeah.
We're talking a lot about this is opening weekend, right? There were going to be games where we saw draws, right? There were going to be games where we saw maybe scoreless draws that maybe had a little bit of chippiness, right? That we sort of saw maybe some rough passing, and maybe some frustrating moments, right? Because we saw that out of Washington Spirit last year a little bit, right? Trinity Rodman has gone on record about it, right? Sometimes she can get a little bit frustrated, right, when things aren't going her way out on the pitch, right? This is year 2 though, right? And this is an early game. This is match day 1 where you want to see maybe the ability to sort of play out of the frustrating moments, right? But this was definitely a little bit of maybe a physical match or choppy match, whichever way you want to boil it down. And I think all these teams are going to maybe go back and take a look a little bit at the tape on this one and sort of see where they can improve on in those areas. I'm eager to see what both of these teams will look like against, a Gotham or North Carolina Courage within this East region. Let's close it out with Kansas City Current versus Racing Louisville out of the Central region. Another match with another draw, but we had a couple goals in this one. 1-1 for both of these teams. Another game where we got to see some new looks for these teams, right? Because these are two teams that were basically the newest expansion sides last year in 2021, entering year 2 now for their respective franchises, having new players, new head coaches, right? A lot of those storylines headed into this match for both of these teams. But how about maybe breaking down some of these goals for us, Lisa? Because again, I was listening for you this weekend on these calls, and I heard in this one. Let's talk a little bit about the goal from KC and then the goal from Racing Louisville.
Yeah, this is the match that opened it all, right? This is the starting one of the Challenge Cup. It really set the tone. I was impressed with Katie Lund and her ability as Racing Louisville goalkeeper to use her feet. She probably touched the ball. I should have looked up these stats before, but probably touched it just as much as like some of the center backs for Racing Louisville, because any opportunity Louisville had to play it back to her feet, they did. And she handled it with ease and composure. Looking at the goals, Cece Kaiser, not at all surprising that she nets this one. It's a breakaway from her streaking down the field. There was gaping holes in the midfield where Kansas City wasn't playing at that point. That's what I saw a lot, which led to this Cece Kaiser opening goal, is that Kansas City was looking to press really high. So they had their front line sitting right on the edge of their attacking 18-yard box as Louisville was looking to build out. But their back line was also stretched because they had Jess McDonald and Amina Ekic for Racing Louisville pressing them high. So because of that, it stretched out their entire midfield, and it wasn't very compact. That way, when Cece Kaiser picks up the ball defensively, she just has space to run and room to go. A little give and go from Jess McDonald, and Cece Kaiser finds the back of the net. Jess McDonald, that assist, it makes her she leads the league in assists for Challenge Cup postseason and NWSL regular season now. And that's a pretty big accomplishment as a forward to have that many assists and lead the league. That goal coming early on in the 20th minute, not until the end of the game, 78th minute for Kansas City, Addie Mccain. This player is fun to watch, Addie Mccain. I was very pleasantly surprised and impressed with what I saw from her. She didn't look like she had nerves when she stepped on the field. She looked like she had a game plan. She knew what she wanted to do. She was confident in her touches on the ball. Even when she made a mistake, it was immediately working hard to get the ball back. She receives this, a quick turn, a shot, no defender steps to her. I think that was also a theme I saw throughout this weekend, is that defenders were a little slow to step. We saw that in the Houston-Chicago game against Mallory Pugh. No defender stepping to her. She takes a shot, finds the back of the net. That's what happened with Addie Mccain, the equalizer, coming in the 78th minute from the top of the box. A really good shot from Mccain. She curls it around Katie Lund in goal, ending in a 1-1 draw for these two. I liked this match. We saw 45 minutes out of Sam Mewis. We got to see Lynn Williams for Kansas City. It took me a minute. As the first match of the Challenge Cup, I was like, hold on. Sam Mewis, Lynn Williams, right? They're on Kansas City. Thank gosh they weren't playing North Carolina. That would have been way too confusing.
Yeah, I wouldn't. We'll see what happens, right? As again, this is just the first game, but I would like to see how Matt Potter wants to maybe utilize some of the talents that he's got on this KC current roster. Is there going to be an opportunity to see like a Mewis and Mccain midfield duo at some point? I really enjoy. I thought they both had impressive 45 minutes for this Kansas City side. I mean, you're talking about, but between them, they're both reached 100% in terms of pass completion into the final third, right? In terms of stats. And I got you on the Katie Lund stat. It was 52 touches. I think you were looking at
That's
for
a lot of touches for a goalkeeper.
Yeah. So 52 touches for the goalkeeper, Katie Lund, for Racing Louisville. But I like it. I like it. When we're looking at the regional rivals, I think maybe there could be something, a short bus ride kind of rivalry going on between these two teams, splitting the points. Looks like the Central might be the region to watch in this one, right? And nobody walking away, without any points except Houston Dash in this one. And then in the East, you're looking at Gotham kind of similarly, right, in that position. So keep an eye on the Central and East divisions and see how they'll shake out. But God, that was a delight, wasn't it? It felt like visiting an old friend when it came to getting a look at these games and getting a look at these matches. NWSL is back.
It is back. We got to see a lot of rookies this weekend, which I was really pleasantly impressed and surprised and excited to see kind of how they would adjust to this game. I mean, Jalen Howell in this game to start out, she got the start, didn't touch the ball as much as I wanted her to. She didn't have as much of an attacking presence in this game as I wanted her to, but the focus from head coach Kim Bjorkegren was to be defensive for Jalen Howell. And I think that's more of what we saw from her, which is great. She's doing what the coach wants. But Sandra, it's back. This is an exciting weekend, and we get to do it all again. But I liked the first taste from the teams. I liked what we saw.
Here's some more matches throughout the rest of the year. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you for listening to our Challenge Cup Week 1 recap. You can follow us on Twitter at Attacking Third for more. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to your podcast shows. You can leave us a 5-star review on Spotify. And if you have any questions for us, which I know you all do, but listen, there's a method to get them answered. You got to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast with your question, and Lisa and I will answer during a mailbag segment. We're also available as video. Please hit subscribe at youtube.com/attacking third so you don't miss a thing. And we will be back on Wednesday with more NWSL news. You can catch all Challenge Cup games on Paramount Plus. For Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.